Okay, we're up to part 3. Still addressing his fellow Oddkins from the workbench stool, Amos the bear said, "This morning, Uncle Isaac decided who should be the next magic toy maker, and he chose Colleen Shannon. She owns a toy shop in the city." "She's nice," said one of the velvet penguins from the sofa on which he was sitting with a cat, a dog, and a squat green frog. "I like her," Burl said. He was a stout fellow who wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a fawn-colored vest, and a dark brown pants he'd held up by suspenders. "I like Mrs. Shannon very much, and as much as I like peanuts, and if I were a real elephant and could eat." He flopped his ears slightly and gave a short side-to-side wave with his trunk, as if underlining his statement. The other Oddkins murmured agreement. "Uncle Isaac was going to invite her here this afternoon or tomorrow," Amos said. "Introduce us to her and explain about the honor and the importance of being the next toy maker. But now—" "Yes, but now," Skippy the rabbit said somberly, though he had never been somber at all. He glanced towards the sofa where Uncle Isaac had passed away. Amos said, "So it's our job to go to Colleen Shannon and tell her that she must take over as a toy maker." "Go to her?" asked Butterscotch the dog. She padded forward from the corner. Most of her coat was soft and golden, though her tail and ears were dark brown. The white fur of her belly and chest extended over part of her face, which had a sweet, gentle look. Her paws, too, were white, as if she were wearing little boots. She looked at Amos and frowned. "You can't be serious. How can we go to her? She's miles and miles from here." "We've got feet, don't we?" Amos replied. Over the workshop, Oddkins gasped in surprise upon realizing what Amos was proposing. Thunder like the growling of mighty machines rolled through the sky. Lightning thromped at the windows. Few fat drops of rain plopped against the glass, but only a few drops. Nothing more, as if the sky were hoarding the water for one great deluge. "Go out?" Burl said from the floor below Amos's stool. He raised his plump, slightly stitched trunk as if to sniff the idea. From his expression, it was clear that he did not like what he smelled. "Out of the workshop? Travel 10 or 20 miles all the way across the city to Mrs. Shannon's shop?" His big feet thumping on the oak floor, Skippy swiftly moved in front of Burl, cocked his head in the direction of his bent ear, and said, "Well, why not, big fellow? I must have heard you 1,000 times that you were a real elephant and could go on treks with a herd. You keep telling us that your heart yearns for the vast plains of Africa. This would be only a little trip to the city. Nothing to it. Why, if something gets in your way, you just tromp on it with your huge elephant feet." Burl looked down at his stubby little velour skin feet and frowned. "Or knock 'em aside with your powerful trunk," Skippy said with a great drama, staggering backwards as if he'd been hit. Burl winked his brow and crossed his eyes in order to examine his own soft gray trunk. Amos was pleased to have Skippy on his side. He just hoped that some other Oddkins, more responsible and a little less silly than the rabbit, would also side with him. Butterscotch for one, and maybe Patch and Gibbons. "Or," Skippy told Burl, "if you run into some troublemaker, you can gore them with those enormous and wickedly sharp tusks." Burl's tusks were the size of a first joint of a man's thumb, covered with soft cotton, stuffed with fireproof fiber, and about as sharp as butter. But the elephant, who did indeed dream of being a real elephant on the African land, was willing to be talked into believing that he was in fact an impressive creature. He did not seem to realize that Skippy was teasing him. "Well, I guess a little trip across the city isn't out of the question," Burl said. "I can take care of myself. Nothing out there is as dangerous as the predators who stalk us in Africa." "That's the spirit," said Skippy, clapping him on the back. Thunder rumbled again, and the rain still holding back. Butterscotch padded over to the rabbit and said, Whether we could make the trip or not is besides the point. I mean, we can't risk being seen by adults. We must never be seen by anyone except the toy maker and the special children to whom we will one day be given." Looking down at them from the workbench stood Amos. And he said, "Oh yes, it is a frightening and dangerous idea, but Uncle Isaac is in heaven now and watching us, and this is what he'd want us to do." "How do you know what he'd want us to do?" asked the frog on the sofa, his deep voice echoing around the big room. Amos frowned. "Well, gosh, I'm not sure how I know, but I know. This is what Uncle Isaac would want, because every hour that passes without a new magic toy maker in charge of the workshop, well, the danger increases that a bad toy maker will come along." "A bad toy maker?" said Burl. From the shadowy corner from the workshop, old Gibbons stepped forward. "Amos is right," he said. Gibbons was a stout, squat, long-snouted creature, the only Oddkins that was not patterned after a recognizable animal, at least none that Amos had recognized. White hair streamed back from Gibbons' high forehead. He wore half-lenses reading glasses on his long nose, but even without those spectacles, he would have looked wise and scholarly. His appearance fascinated all the Oddkins. More than a few of them regarded him with reverence, as children might look up to a greatly respected and beloved teacher. Gibbons said, "Before Uncle Isaac, the workshop was run by an evil man who made magic toys that harmed children." And every Oddkins in the room, except Amos, gasped in shock. "Harm children," said Butterscotch. "But that's unthinkable." Here's the picture. And we'll stop there, because that's the end of section 4 at this point. But, so, Skippy, Amos, Burl, now we've met Butterscotch, and Gibbons. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.